Hi guys, it's Jayma here, and today I have a 2-page scrapbook layout for you where I'm going to do some embellishing and walk you through my embellishing process and some tips to keep in mind to make sure everything looks balanced. And I'm also going to be using a sketch, and I'm going to show you ways to add more photos than the sketch actually calls for. And my son, Tyler, is actually going to be helping me with the voiceover because we're going to be documenting some photos from a hike we did in Hawaii over the summer. So, are you excited?
Yeah.
All right, let's get going. So here are the photos that we're going to be working with. As you can see, we had a gorgeous view. And Tyler, what do you remember about this hike?
Well, it was the 4th of July, so it was a special occasion.
Yeah, you see my shirt there with the red, white, and blue?
Yeah. And when we got to the top of the mountain, the ocean was very pretty, and we could see the white waves hitting the rocks.
Yeah, that was super pretty. Okay, so right here, I'm looking at the sketch that I want to use, but I didn't have as many photos over on the right side, and I had lots of 3x4 portrait orientation photos. So here's a sketch right here. It's one of the sketches that was in our creative design team membership. And so I just altered it. I'm using the same pieces in the background as you'll see, and I'm going to be selecting those here. But I just changed up where the photos are going. So here I have the Utterly Adorable paper, and I think that these top 3 are the ones that I want to go with, and so I had those on top, and I'm also considering this one here, but I'm not totally sure about it. Maybe the rocks, but these ones that have more of like a blue-green, I'm not gonna use those, and I don't want the otters because I don't have any use for the otters in this particular layout, so I'm gonna put the rest of these aside. So you can see that the otter themed paper, if you're just using the back side, it doesn't have to be otter themed at all. In fact, this is very perfect for a Hawaiian tropical layout. So I'm just going to decide which papers I want where. This pattern is pretty busy, so I know that I don't want that one right behind my photos, so maybe that could be the border. This one is also an option as the border, although I'm not loving that blue color. It's more of that green blue, but we'll just go ahead and live with it for a little bit and see how we feel. I also know that I want to bring in some of that kind of brown gray color that's underneath these rocks because there are rocks in the photos, and I think that it works nicely with the colors in the rocks as well as it kind of blends with the sand color as well. So I am liking that, and I think I even like it in this position. But this paper I really love, and I'm not loving both of those kind of viney looks, so I'm going to go back to the blue as my border in the background. Still not loving that. I'm liking this one here. So I think that this is going to be my final selection, but we need a border. There's like a 1/2-inch strip that goes across. So I'm just deciding what color I want for that. So I'm going to pull out this green, and so that's what that's going to look like. I'm going to mirror everything on the other side, and I'm going to try one more time with this one here. I'm not sure what else I would use it for with the fish and the seaweed, but it's not going to work here. So we're going to go final answer. Here are my paper selections. Now I am trying to get the most out of my paper. So what I'm going to do is cut this because we're using half of it on one side and half on the other. It's cut at 7 inches and 5 inches. And then I am going to gut out the center of this paper. I love how this looks for like water and mimics the water and the sky that is in my photos. Actually, it matches the sky even better because the water is like an aqua blue and the sky is more of this like sky blue color. But anyways, this is all that's going to be showing behind that white, so I wanted to save as much of that paper as possible. And you may have noticed in the beginning that I'm using this white background paper. that has a big piece cut out of it. That's because that's not going to be showing. So I'm cutting it down to 11 by 11. If that piece weren't gone, it would be an 11 by 11 square. And then I'm going to strategically hide that piece back there. I think I used a piece for a mat on a layout that I did prior to this. I was at a retreat when I started working on this, but then I finished it at home. See how that all came together, and I was able to save so much paper. So now I am back home and I've done a bunch of die cutting for my embellishments. I have lots of beach themed stamps and dies. This one here is Beauty of the Deep, and then I've got the Seaside Wishes. This is my favorite for these awesome sand dollars that will cut and emboss. There's a coordinating embossing folder, and I love doing that technique where I emboss them and then do some inking over it. And so I'm going to show you how I do that, as well as add some inking to the rest of these die cuts. This is the Stampin' Die set that goes with the Utterly Adorable paper, and I really liked the log that came in that set. And I'll also be using some of those little sprigs and the rocks for my embellishments. Finally, I cut some of these little fern sprigs. These were from one of the Paper Pumpkin add-on die sets. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab the gray granite, and I have a blending brush and one of these little die cut coral pieces from Beauty of the Deep. And I just did a little bit of pouncing. I actually cut it out in Espresso cardstock, which was a close to my heart color because I didn't have any gray granite at the time. And so I just pounced on it to kind of make it a little bit more gray, but I do like the brown tone that's in it as well. I did the same thing with the logs. And then for the ferns, I'm just adding a tiny bit of ink to the edges with a foam dauber. You can use a foam tool, any kind of foam tool, or a blending brush as well. I just happen to have that type in that green color. And then here are the sand dollars. These are already cut and embossed, so the die fits inside the embossing folder and die cuts it and embosses it at the same time. And I love doing just a light wash of the ink over it, just to bring out a little bit of color and bring out that embossing. And it also perfectly matches the sand that's in my photos. So I'm going to start out with these pieces first because they are the biggest and they're really like my anchoring pieces for my embellishment clusters. So I'm placing them in a visual triangle around the layout in 3 spots that I think would look good with some embellishments. I really love these logs and I really wanted to try to use them, but they are a little bit hard to place, especially with so many photos on the layout. And then the next biggest piece is these coral pieces. So these are going to go next. I'm just kind of tucking them behind a couple of the sand dollars, and they are going to end up in a couple other places as well. I was able to break off smaller pieces that are hidden behind the photos to use in a couple of smaller places as well. And then I've got my little ferns. This is such a great die. You know me and sprigs if you know my channel, and I just love leaves and sprigs any which way. And so these ferns just kind of go with so many things. I'm really loving this die right here. It's a great size and great shape, and I'm definitely going to be using it time and time again. I decided that I wanted more of these little sand dollars around the page. I like to have an odd number of embellishment clusters, so typically I'll do 3 and have a visual triangle, but in this case I wanted a couple more, so I'm going to add a couple more smaller embellishment clusters, and still just keeping in mind that I want the embellishments scattered around the layout in a way that helps draw your eye around the page. And so that's typically, I love playing with embellishments and making embellishments clusters. It's one of my favorite things to do. But the purpose, besides dressing up and helping tell the story, is to also help draw your eye around the page. And so that's what I'm trying to do. One thing I like to keep in mind that helps do this is to make sure that each of your clusters has one of each element or one of each color. So you'll notice that I have a sand dollar in each spot, and that helps draw draw that sand color around. I have something in the green color, something in the brown color, something in that turquoise color. So I've got something in all of the colors, and so that also helps even things out and draw your eye around the page. These little tiny coral pieces are from Beauty of the Deep. Don't overlook those because they're a great subtle way to add some color. Now, those little seaweed pieces were also from Seaside Wishes, but I want to point out this brand new stamp set that I didn't have yet when I was cutting all of these things, but it also has a similar piece and also some other really fun sea type pieces that you could use on a layout like this. So this hike that we did, it was super awesome. As I mentioned, gorgeous, gorgeous views. And if you're familiar with Kauai, it started at Shipwreck Beach down in Poipu. And you head from the beach up to the cliffs. And the beginning of the hike, there's no scenes. It's just kind of walking through trees, and it's all sandy, so it's kind of hard to walk through the thick sand. And, you know, it's really steep, so the kids were complaining and not into it. And of course, it was pretty hard. So here I'm actually going to measure to create a title for my layout with the Cricut. And I'm actually going to do a tutorial to show you how to do this in a future video. I'll show you with this exact title. So anyways, the kids were complaining and all that, and then we get up to the top where the view is, and of course you start getting the sea breeze and you see the view, and it's like, oh my gosh, all of that was totally worth it. And then we kept going, and you go along the cliffs, and you're right on the cliffs above the water for so long, and then you go along a golf course. We could have just kept going and going, but the kids were starting to get tired and complain. But highly recommend this. I forget exactly what it's called, but it just goes off of Shipwreck if you're ever in Kauai. So that larger coral piece right there, I moved it from the top because I didn't like the brown next to the brown title. And then if you notice, I have a few other spots where I added the coral. So I tore off little pieces that were behind the photos, and I added them to a couple of other little spots. And then these little gems are the Riverside Irregular Pearls. They actually were designed to go with this utterly adorable paper. And I'm putting 3 in each cluster. And then when I was done, I realized, you know what, there's just too much going on with having so many clusters and little pieces in the clusters that I removed some, and I only have like 1 to 2 in each cluster now. But here's a close-up of the final product, and then hang tight because I'm actually going to show you how I'm fitting my journaling and an extra photo on this layout. Here's a close-up of the other page, and I placed a lot of the items off screen because the embellishing got to be pretty long in this footage. So anyways, I have a flip flap here, and this is something that Close to My Heart used to carry, and now Stampin' Up has them too in several sizes. This is the 3x4, and then I also have this Light the Sky die set, and these dies are pretty fun because they actually create like a negative impression in something. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut this into a white layer, and I'm layering that turquoise layer underneath it. I think that's pretty peacock, so that you can see the pretty peacock through in the firework shape. And I thought that was kind of fun since this is the 4th of July, and that's really the only nod to the 4th of July that is on this layout besides my shirt. So that was kind of fun, and this is where I will add my journaling, of course. And then I have this stamp set from my stash. It was a Close to My Heart stamp set, and I wanted to stamp this view because of course this view was amazing, and I'm going to journal about all of that and you know, everything that I've already told you in this video. So I'm just going to push that up there. You need to make sure that that one underneath is upside down if you're going to be flipping it up, because it's going to flip up, and if it's not upside down, it will be upside down when it flips up. And then I just took off that release tape and put it right over my photo, burnish it in so it stays, and I have never had a problem doing this. It always sticks for me. I'm just going to straighten all those out and make sure they're even. And then we've got 2 photos in the real estate of 1 plus a hidden journaling card. So there you go. We hope you enjoyed the video.
If you want to see me help my mom organize her stamps and dies, then click the video on the screen. Bye!